The first thing you need to know about my wife Brooklyn is that she's never met a mirror she didn't like. The second thing is that she's never met a boundary she wouldn't cross if it meant getting attention. I learned both of these facts the hard way, standing in my perfectly manicured backyard at 7:30 on a Tuesday evening, watching her giggle like a schoolgirl at our new neighbor through the chain-link fence. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. My name is Reid Kessler, and I'm a landscape architect. I design outdoor spaces for people who have more money than sense, which means I spend my days making suburban dreams come true for folks who think a water feature will solve their marriage problems. The irony wasn't lost on me as I watched my own marriage crumble over a fence I'd installed myself. Brooklyn was supposed to be weeding the flower beds. Instead, she was leaning against that fence in her tightest yoga pants, phone in hand, taking what had to be her 15th selfie in 10 minutes. The target of her performance was Travis Lennox, 34 years old, recently divorced, and apparently blessed with the kind of abs that made dental technicians forget they were married. "Reid, honey, come meet Travis," Brooklyn called out, her voice pitched higher than usual. "He just moved in last week." I walked over, trowel still in hand, dirt under my fingernails from actually working in the garden. Travis was everything I wasn't. Tall where I was average, muscled where I was lean, confident where I was cautious. He had that gym bro swagger wrapped in a thin veneer of artistic sensitivity that women seem to find irresistible. "Nice to meet you, man," Travis said, extending a hand over the fence. His grip was firm, just shy of aggressive. "Brooklyn's been telling me all about your landscaping business. Sounds fascinating." The way he said fascinating made it clear he found it about as interesting as watching paint dry. Brooklyn, meanwhile, was practically vibrating with excitement. "Travis is an artist," she gushed. "He does these amazing sculptures out of recycled materials. Show him the pictures, Travis." For the next 10 minutes I stood there like a third wheel while my wife fawned over Travis's art, which looked like the kind of junk you'd find in a college dorm room after a particularly creative bender. Brooklyn asked questions, laughed at his jokes, and generally acted like she'd discovered the next Michelangelo living in a rental house next door. "Well," I finally said, "I should get back to the real garden work. Nice meeting you, Travis." As I walked away, I heard Brooklyn apologize for my mood. Through the kitchen window, I watched them continue their conversation for another 20 minutes. She took more selfies. He flexed while pretending to stretch. It was like watching a nature documentary about mating rituals, except the animals were my wife and the guy next door. That night, Brooklyn was unusually chatty over dinner. "Travis has such an interesting perspective on life," she said, twirling pasta around her fork. "He's been through so much with his divorce. His ex-wife was apparently crazy, stalked him, keyed his car, the whole 9 yards. "Sounds like a real catch," I muttered. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing. Just wondering what kind of guy attracts that level of crazy." Brooklyn's fork clattered against her plate. "You know what, Reid? Not everyone who gets divorced is a bad person. Sometimes people just grow apart." The way she said it made my stomach clench. "Are we talking about Travis or us?" "We're talking about having some compassion for our neighbor." But the look in her eyes said we were talking about a lot more than that. Over the next week, Brooklyn's gardening schedule became remarkably regular. Every evening at 7, she'd be out there by the fence, finding reasons to chat with Travis. She started wearing makeup to weed the flower beds. She bought new yoga pants. She downloaded a plant identification app and suddenly became fascinated with horticulture. I started paying attention. Brooklyn had always been social, but this was different. This was focused. Predatory, even. She'd check her phone constantly, giggling at texts. She'd disappear into the bathroom for 20 minutes at a time, emerging with fresh lip gloss and a guilty expression. The breaking point came on a Thursday night. I was working late in my shed, a converted garage space where I kept my design materials and did my best thinking. Around 11 p.m., I stepped outside to lock up and saw two figures by the fence. Brooklyn and Travis, standing closer than neighbors should, passing something between them, a folded piece of paper. In the age of smartphones and social media, my wife was passing actual handwritten notes like a teenager. I pulled out my phone and took pictures, the camera's night mode capturing everything in stark detail. Brooklyn's body language, Travis's cocky grin, the intimate way they leaned toward each other. I had evidence. The question was what to do with it. The next morning, Brooklyn was humming in the kitchen, making coffee with unusual enthusiasm. She'd curled her hair and was wearing the dress I'd bought her for our anniversary, the one she claimed was too fancy for every day. "Big plans today?" I asked, setting my phone on the counter. "Just work, then maybe some gardening." She didn't meet my eyes. "Funny thing about gardening," I said, pulling up the photos from the night before. "Sometimes you discover things growing where they shouldn't be." Brooklyn's face went white as she looked at the screen. There she was, clear as day, taking a note from Travis like some kind of suburban spy. "Reid, I can explain." "Can you? Because it looks pretty self-explanatory to me." She set down her coffee mug with shaking hands. "It's not what you think. We're just friends. He was asking for advice about his ex-wife situation. And he needed to pass you a secret note at 11 p.m. for that? You're being paranoid." "Am I? Let me see your phone." "What?" "Your phone. If you're just giving neighborly advice, you won't mind showing me your messages." Brooklyn clutched her phone to her chest like it was a lifeline. "I'm not going to let you spy on me like some jealous psycho." "Jealous psycho? That's interesting. You know what else is interesting? The fact that you're suddenly an expert gardener, you've bought a whole new wardrobe for yard work, and you're passing notes like you're in middle school. You don't trust me? Give me a reason to." Instead, Brooklyn grabbed her purse and stormed out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. Through the front window, I watched her march over to Travis's house and disappear inside. She didn't come home until after midnight. Brooklyn thought she was clever, but she'd forgotten that I made my living paying attention to details. Over the next few days, I started documenting everything. Times she left the house, when she came back, changes in her routine. I felt like a private investigator in my own marriage, which was both pathetic and necessary. The evidence piled up quickly. Brooklyn started working late 3 nights a week, except I called her office and learned she'd been leaving at her regular time. She claimed to be having dinner with her friend Marcy, but Marcy posted Instagram stories from her book club on those same nights. Brooklyn bought new lingerie and hid it in the back of her dresser drawer, behind the old pajamas she never wore. Most damning of all, she started password protecting her phone. I'm not proud of what I did next, but desperate times called for desperate measures. Brooklyn had always been careless with technology. She used the same password for everything, our wedding date in reverse. It took me 3 tries to get into her phone while she was in the shower. What I found made my stomach turn. Dozens of text messages with Travis, starting innocent enough but quickly escalating. Photos of herself in the lingerie I'd never seen. Screenshots of apartment listings in the next town over. And worst of all, a selfie of Travis shirtless in what was unmistakably our bedroom, taken while I was at work. They weren't just having an emotional affair. They were planning a future together. I forwarded everything to my own email, then cleared the sent folder and put her phone back exactly where I'd found it. My hands were shaking, but my mind was crystal clear. Brooklyn wanted to play games? Fine, but she'd picked the wrong opponent. The next evening, I was waiting in the backyard when she came out for her gardening session. She looked surprised to see me there, sitting in one of our patio chairs with a beer and my tablet. "Oh, hi, honey. I didn't know you were out here." "Just enjoying the evening air," I said, "and catching up on some interesting reading." I turned the tablet toward her. The screen showed a screenshot of her text conversation with Travis, including a particularly graphic message about what she wanted to do to him in that boring husband's bed. Brooklyn's face cycled through several emotions: surprise, fear, anger, and finally defiance. You went through my phone. You brought your lover into our bedroom. Travis isn't my lover. Really? Because this message here suggests otherwise, and this photo definitely suggests otherwise. She sat down across from me, her gardening gloves still in her hands. For a moment, she looked like the woman I'd married, vulnerable, uncertain, almost childlike. Then the mask slipped back into place. Our marriage has been over for years, Reid. You know it, I know it. We're just going through the motions. So you decided to go through some motions with the neighbor instead. Don't be crude. Crude? You want to talk about crude? How about sleeping with another man in the bed I paid for, in the house I maintain, while lying to my face every single day? Brooklyn flinched. I rarely raised my voice and never used language like that. But then again, I'd never caught my wife cheating before. I didn't mean for it to happen, she said quietly. But it did happen. Multiple times, apparently. In multiple locations. What do you want me to say? That I'm sorry? Fine, I'm sorry. Are you? Or are you just sorry you got caught? She didn't answer, which was answer enough. Here's what's going to happen, I said, setting down my beer. You're going to end it with Travis. You're going to block his number, avoid him completely, and we're going to try to fix our marriage. Or what? Or I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of person you are. Your job, your friends, your family, everyone. Brooklyn's eyes flashed with anger. You wouldn't dare. Try me. She stood up, tossing her gardening gloves on the table. You know what? I'm done pretending. Yes, I'm having an affair. Yes, I have feelings for Travis. And no, I'm not going to end it just because you're threatened by a real man. A real man? He's unemployed and living in a rental. He's passionate. He's creative. He makes me feel alive in a way you never have. He makes you feel alive by screwing you in our bed? At least he pays attention to me. When's the last time you touched me, Reid? Really touched me, not just rolling over in bed like it's a chore? The accusation hit home because it had some truth to it. We had grown distant over the years, settling into a routine that prioritized comfort over passion. But that didn't excuse what she'd done. So this is my fault? It's both our faults, but I'm the only one trying to do something about it. By cheating. By finding someone who actually wants me. With that, she walked into the house, leaving me alone in the backyard I'd spent years perfecting. The irony wasn't lost on me. I could design beautiful spaces for other people, but I couldn't keep my own marriage from falling apart. That night, Brooklyn slept in the guest room. The next morning, she was gone before I woke up, leaving only a note on the kitchen counter. Staying at Marcy's for a few days. We both need space to think. Except I knew she wasn't staying at Marcy's. Marcy lived in a studio apartment barely big enough for one person. Brooklyn was staying with Travis, probably telling him what a terrible husband I was, how controlling and suspicious and boring. Fine. If she wanted space, I'd give her space. But I'd also give her something else. Consequences. Brooklyn staying at Travis's house was the best thing that could have happened to my revenge plan. It meant I had complete access to our home, our joint accounts, and most importantly, our social circle. Brooklyn had always been the social butterfly in our marriage, maintaining friendships with couples from the neighborhood, her work, and our shared past. She assumed those relationships would stay loyal to her, especially the women who'd commiserate with her about having an emotionally distant husband. She was wrong. The first call I made was to Marcy, Brooklyn's supposed best friend and confidant. Marcy worked as a nurse at the local hospital, and had always struck me as the type who enjoyed drama as long as she wasn't the one living it. "Reid, is everything okay? Brooklyn said you two were having some problems." "That's one way to put it," I said. "Did she mention she's been having an affair with our neighbor?" Silence on the other end of the line. "Marcy, you still there?" She said you two were separated." "We're not separated. She's been cheating on me for weeks, maybe months, bringing him into our house, our bedroom. Did she tell you that part?" More silence, then a sharp intake of breath. "Oh my God. Reid, I'm so sorry, I had no idea. I have proof, text messages, photos, the whole thing. I just thought you should know what kind of person you're covering for." After I hung up with Marcy, I made similar calls to 3 other women in Brooklyn's inner circle. Each conversation followed the same pattern: initial surprise, then horror, then anger at being used as alibis for Brooklyn's affair. By the end of the day, Brooklyn's support network had evaporated. But that was just the beginning. The next morning, I drove to Brooklyn's dental office. She worked as a hygienist for Dr. Patterson, a family practice that prided itself on wholesome community values. Their waiting room was full of motivational posters about trust, integrity, and family values. "Is Brooklyn in today?" I asked the receptionist. "She called in sick. Can I take a message?" "Actually, I need to speak with Dr. Patterson. I'm her husband, and there's a personal matter that might affect her work." 20 minutes later, I was sitting in Dr. Patterson's office, showing him screenshots of Brooklyn's text messages with Travis, the ones where she complained about being stuck in this boring job and talked about quitting once she moved in with her real man. Dr. Patterson, a man in his 60s who'd built his practice on family values, was not amused. "I appreciate you bringing this to my attention, Reid. While I don't normally get involved in employees' personal lives, Brooklyn has been unreliable lately, and if she's planning to quit without notice, I just thought you should be prepared," I said, "in case she doesn't come back." From there, I drove to the bank. Brooklyn and I had joint accounts, which meant I had every right to know where our money was going. What I discovered made me freeze. Over the past month, Brooklyn had been making cash withdrawals, small amounts that wouldn't trigger alerts, but they added up to nearly $2,000. Money that had probably gone toward new clothes, dinners with Travis, maybe even a deposit on that apartment they'd been looking at. I didn't close the accounts. That would have been too obvious. Instead, I set up alerts for any transaction over $50 and changed the passwords on our online banking. If Brooklyn wanted to access our money, she'd have to ask me directly. The real masterstroke came that evening when I was researching Travis online. Social media, public records, anything I could find about Brooklyn's new love interest. What I discovered was a goldmine. Travis Lennox had been married before, just like Brooklyn had said. But the divorce wasn't because his wife was crazy. It was because Travis had a pattern of cheating, lying, and financial irresponsibility. Court records showed his ex-wife had been awarded alimony because Travis had hidden assets and attempted to defraud their joint accounts. Even better, his ex-wife was named Jane Flanders, and she was very active on social media. Very active and very bitter about her divorce. Her Facebook page was a shrine to their failed marriage, full of posts about narcissistic men and women who don't know what they're getting into. I sent Jane a friend request and a carefully worded message. "Hi, Jane. I hope you don't mind me reaching out. I'm Reid Kessler, Travis's neighbor. I think we might have some things in common regarding his behavior patterns. Would you be interested in talking?" She responded within an hour. "OMG, yes. That man destroyed my life. Is he up to his old tricks?" Over the next few days, Jane and I exchanged messages. She told me everything: how Travis love-bombed women in the beginning, making them feel special and desired, then gradually isolated them from friends and family. How he was always looking for his next victim while still involved with his current one. How he'd cheated on her with 3 different women during their marriage, always with the same pattern of secret messages and elaborate lies. "He's probably telling your wife that you don't understand her," Jane wrote, "that you're controlling and boring and she deserves better. That's his standard playbook." She was right, of course, but Jane also gave me something even more valuable: information about Travis's weaknesses. He was vain, insecure, despite his confident exterior, and absolutely terrified of public embarrassment. His worst fear was being exposed as the fraud he was. Perfect. "Jane," I wrote back, "how would you feel about helping me give Travis a taste of his own medicine?" Her response was immediate. "Tell me what you need." Brooklyn came home on a Friday afternoon while I was working in my shed. I heard the front door slam and her heels clicking across the hardwood floor, each step sharp with anger. Through the window, I watched her storm through the house, probably looking for me. "Reid!" she called out. "Reid, we need to talk!" I took my time finishing what I was doing, sketching plans for a client's water garden, before walking to the house. Brooklyn was in the kitchen, her face flushed with fury. "What the hell did you do?" "You'll need to be more specific," I said, opening the refrigerator and pulling out a beer. "I've done a lot of things lately. Marcy won't talk to me. Neither will Susan or Jennifer or Kate. My friends are treating me like I have some kind of disease." "Interesting. Why do you think that is?" "Because you've been spreading lies about me." I took a long sip of my beer, studying her face. Brooklyn was beautiful when she was angry. Flushed cheeks, bright eyes, that little vein in her temple that pulsed when she was really worked up. It was one of the things that had attracted me to her in the first place, all that passion and fire. Too bad she was directing it at someone else now. "I haven't spread any lies," I said finally. "I've only shared the truth. You had no right to tell people about my personal business." "Your personal business? Is that what we're calling adultery now?" Brooklyn's hands clenched into fists. "You're trying to destroy my life." "I'm not trying to destroy anything. I'm just making sure people know who you really are." "And what's that supposed to mean?" I set down my beer and pulled out my phone, scrolling to a screenshot I'd saved. "It means showing them messages like this one, where you call me a pathetic loser and say you can't wait to dump his boring ass and start your real life." Brooklyn's face went white. "You can't just share private conversations." "Watch me." "Reid, please. I know I've made mistakes, but this isn't the way to handle it. We can work through this. We can go to counseling, figure out where we went wrong." "Where we went wrong?" "We didn't go anywhere, Brooklyn. You went somewhere. You went to Travis's bed while I was working to pay for this house, this life, everything you've been taking for granted." "I was lonely." "So you decided to sleep with the neighbor?" She flinched at my language again. I'd been doing that a lot lately, using words I normally wouldn't, saying things I normally wouldn't say. But normal had gone out the window when I found those photos. "It wasn't supposed to happen," she said, her voice smaller now. "It just developed." "Developed? Like what, a disease? Because that's sure what it feels like from where I'm sitting." "Don't be cruel." "Cruel? You want to talk about cruel? How about lying to my face every day for months? How about bringing another man into our bedroom? How about planning your exit strategy while pretending to be my wife?" Brooklyn sank into one of the kitchen chairs, her anger deflating into something that looked almost like shame. Almost. "What do you want from me, Reid? You want me to grovel? You want me to beg for forgiveness? Fine. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I hurt you. I'm sorry I lied. I'm sorry I fell in love with someone else." "You're in love with him?" "Yes, I am. And I know that hurts you, but it's the truth." The admission hit harder than I'd expected. Part of me had hoped this was just a midlife crisis, a temporary insanity that would burn itself out. But love? That made it real in a way I wasn't prepared for. "Then why are you here?" I asked. "Because Travis thinks we should slow things down. He's worried about moving too fast, making the same mistakes he made in his last relationship." I almost laughed. Travis wasn't worried about making mistakes. He was already lining up his next victim. But I wasn't going to be the one to tell Brooklyn that. She'd figure it out soon enough. So you're here because he doesn't want you? That's not what I said. It's what you meant. Brooklyn stood up, her anger returning. You know what? I tried to do this the right way. I tried to be honest with you, to work things out like adults. But you're determined to be vindictive and petty. Vindictive and petty? Lady, you haven't seen vindictive and petty yet. What's that supposed to mean? Instead of answering, I pulled out my phone and showed her a screenshot of my conversation with Jane Flanders. Brooklyn's eyes widened as she read. You've been talking to his ex-wife? Jane's a lovely woman. Very informative. Did you know Travis cheated on her with 3 different women? Did you know he hid money from her during their divorce? Did you know his pattern is to love bomb new victims while he's still involved with his current girlfriend? You're lying. Am I? Why don't you ask him about Sarah Chen, the woman he was seeing while he was married to Jane? Or maybe ask about Lisa Martinez, the one he moved in with 2 weeks before he filed for divorce. Brooklyn's face was pale now, but she shook her head stubbornly. Jane is obviously bitter about their divorce. You can't trust anything she says. Can't I? Then why don't you ask Travis about her yourself? I'm sure he'd love to explain his relationship history. I don't need to ask him anything. I trust him. The way he trusted Jane, the way Jane trusted him, the way I trusted you. That hit home. Brooklyn's confident mask slipped, revealing the uncertainty underneath. This is different, she said, but her voice lacked conviction. Is it? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks exactly the same. Married person having an affair, making promises about a future together, believing they're special and different from all the others who came before. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't I? Let me guess. Travis tells you that you're the most amazing woman he's ever met, that his marriage was over long before he met you, that you understand him in a way no one else ever has, that you're soulmates, destined to be together. Brooklyn's silence was answer enough. Those are the same lines he used on Jane, and Sarah, and Lisa. You're not special, Brooklyn, you're just next in line. Stop it. The truth hurts, doesn't it? But not as much as finding out your husband has been cheating on you for months. Not as much as discovering that the person you trusted most in the world has been lying to your face every single day. Brooklyn was crying now, tears streaming down her cheeks. But I felt no satisfaction in her pain. If anything, I felt empty, hollowed out by the whole ugly situation. I never wanted to hurt you, she whispered. But you did. You destroyed our marriage, our trust, our future. And for what? For a guy who's already looking for his next conquest? That's not true. Isn't it? When's the last time he texted you, called you, made plans that extend beyond this weekend? Brooklyn's face told me everything I needed to know. Travis was already pulling back, just like Jane had predicted. The thrill of the chase was over, and he was getting bored. He's just being cautious, Brooklyn said, but she sounded like she was trying to convince herself. He's being Travis. This is what he does, Brooklyn. This is who he is. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, smearing her mascara. Even if that's true, it doesn't change the fact that our marriage was over long before I met him. Was it? Or did you just decide it was over because you found something more exciting? We were roommates, Reid. We went through the motions, but there was no passion, no connection. We were both just existing. Maybe she was right. Maybe we had been going through the motions, but that didn't justify what she'd done, and it didn't change what happened next. Well, I said, finishing my beer, you won't have to exist with me much longer. What do you mean? I mean I filed for divorce this afternoon. You'll be served with papers on Monday. Brooklyn stared at me in shock. You can't be serious. Absolutely serious. I've got a lawyer, I've got evidence, and I've got no interest in trying to rebuild something you've already burned to the ground. Reid, wait. Please, can't we try to work this out? Work what out? You just told me you're in love with another man. But if he's really like you say he is, then you'll figure that out on your own. But you'll do it as my ex-wife, not my current one. I walked toward the door, then turned back. Oh, and Brooklyn? You might want to find somewhere else to stay tonight. I'm having the locks changed in the morning. The look of shock and betrayal on her face almost made me feel guilty. Almost. But then I remembered the photo of Travis in our bedroom, and the feeling passed. The divorce papers were just the opening move. Over the next 2 weeks, I systematically dismantled the life Brooklyn had taken for granted while she was busy playing house with Travis. I wasn't cruel about it. Everything I did was legal, logical, and completely justified. But the cumulative effect was devastating. First, I canceled her credit cards. Since they were in my name with her as an authorized user, I had every right to do it. Brooklyn discovered this when she tried to buy groceries, and her card was declined in front of a line of people, including 2 women from her former book club who'd already heard about the affair. Next, I changed our phone plan. Brooklyn's number stayed active, but I removed the unlimited data and texting she'd been using to coordinate with Travis. Suddenly, her constant communication became expensive, and Travis, who was unemployed and living on savings, wasn't eager to pick up the extra costs. I also started making strategic social media posts. Nothing obvious or vindictive, just subtle updates about moving forward after betrayal and learning who your real friends are. I shared articles about infidelity and its impact on families. I posted photos of myself looking thoughtful and wounded, but dignified. The community response was swift and decisive. Brooklyn had underestimated how much people valued loyalty and marriage in our suburban neighborhood. Her social media filled with comments from people expressing support for me and disappointment in her choices. Several couples who'd been friends with both of us made it clear they were choosing sides, and they weren't choosing hers. But the real masterstroke was yet to come. Jane Flanders had been busy during those 2 weeks, reaching out to other women in Travis's past. It turned out his pattern of behavior was even more extensive than we'd initially discovered. There was Monica, the woman he'd cheated with while engaged to someone else. There was Rachel, who'd lent him money that he never repaid. There was Ashley, who'd caught him in bed with her roommate. All of these women were eager to share their stories, and Jane had created a private Facebook group where they could compare notes. The group was called Travis Lennox Truth Squad, and it had grown to 15 members in just 2 weeks. We should go public, Jane suggested during one of our phone calls. Create a website, warn other women about what he's really like. That might be too much, I said. Could backfire on us legally. Then what do you suggest? Something more targeted, more personal. The opportunity came sooner than I'd expected. Brooklyn called me on a Thursday evening, crying so hard I could barely understand her. Reid, I need to talk to you. Can I come over? What's wrong? Please, I need to see you. She showed up 20 minutes later, looking like she hadn't slept in days. Her hair was unwashed, her clothes wrinkled, and her eyes were red from crying. Travis broke up with me, she said before I could even invite her in. I'm sorry to hear that, I lied. No, you're not. You're probably thrilled. I wasn't thrilled, exactly. Seeing Brooklyn in pain didn't bring me the satisfaction I'd expected. If anything, it made me feel hollow and sad about the whole situation. What happened? I asked. He said he wasn't ready for a serious relationship, that he needed space to work on himself, that it wasn't fair to me to continue when he couldn't give me what I deserved. All the classic breakup lines delivered with Travis's trademark pseudo-sensitivity. Did he mention anyone else? Brooklyn's face crumpled. There's a woman at his gym, younger, no baggage. He swears nothing's happened yet, but But you don't believe him. I saw her Instagram. She's been posting photos of them together for the past week. Of course she had. Travis was nothing if not predictable. Brooklyn collapsed onto my couch, our couch, and buried her face in her hands. I threw away our marriage for nothing, didn't I? You threw away our marriage for Travis, I corrected. Whether it was worth it or not is something you'll have to decide. I was so stupid. You tried to warn me, and I didn't listen. No, you didn't. Is there any chance we could try again? I know I messed up, but maybe we could go to counseling, work through this. Brooklyn, stop. She looked up at me with desperate, hopeful eyes. It's too late for that, I said gently. Too much has happened. Too much trust has been broken. But I love you. No, you don't. You love the security I represented. You love having a backup plan when your exciting new life doesn't work out. But you don't love me. That's not true. Isn't it? 3 weeks ago, you told me you were in love with Travis. You called me boring and pathetic. You said you couldn't wait to start your real life without me. I was angry. I didn't mean those things. Yes, you did. And you know what? Some of them were probably true. Maybe I was boring. Maybe I did take you for granted. Maybe our marriage needed work. Brooklyn's face brightened with hope. But that didn't give you the right to cheat, I continued. It didn't give you the right to lie to me, to bring another man into our bed, to plan your exit while pretending to be my wife. Reid, please. The divorce papers are already filed. I've moved on, Brooklyn. You should too. She started crying again, harder this time. Where am I supposed to go? I can't afford an apartment on my own, and all my friends hate me. You should have thought about that before you decided to blow up your life. You're really going to throw me out with nothing? I'm not throwing you out with nothing. You'll get whatever the court decides is fair. But you're not staying here, and we're not getting back together. Brooklyn sat on the couch for another hour, alternating between tears and anger, between begging and accusations. I let her get it all out, but my decision was final. When she finally left, I knew it would be the last time we'd have a conversation like that. The next morning, Jane Flanders called with an update. Travis is already posting photos with the new girl, she said. Her name is Melissa, she's 26, and she works as a personal trainer. That was fast. That's Travis. He can't stand to be alone. He needs constant validation from women. How's Brooklyn handling it? Not well, from what I hear. She's been calling him constantly, showing up at his house. He had to block her number. The irony was perfect. Brooklyn had become the crazy ex-girlfriend she'd once mocked Jane for being. The cycle was complete. Jane, I said, I think it's time for phase 2 of our plan. What did you have in mind? A little public education. Nothing illegal, nothing that could get us in trouble. Just making sure the community knows what kind of man they're dealing with. I'm listening. How do you feel about organizing a neighborhood barbecue? Jane's laughter was music to my ears. The barbecue was scheduled for the following Saturday. I sent invitations to everyone in the neighborhood, including Travis and his new girlfriend, Melissa. The theme was getting to know your neighbors, and I promised good food, cold drinks, and interesting conversation. Brooklyn wasn't invited. 15 people showed up, including Travis and Melissa. She was exactly what I'd expected. Young, fit, bubbly, and completely clueless about what she was getting into. Travis was his usual charming self, working the crowd, telling stories, making everyone laugh. Jane arrived fashionably late, looking stunning in a sundress that showed off her figure. She'd lost weight since her divorce and had clearly been working out. Several of the men at the party noticed her immediately. Travis, she called out sweetly. What a surprise to see you here. Travis's face went white. Jane, what are you doing here? Reid invited me. We've become such good friends since we bonded over our shared experiences with dishonest spouses. The conversation around us quieted as people sensed drama brewing. Everyone, Jane continued, her voice carrying across the backyard, I'd like you to meet my ex-husband Travis. We were married for 5 years before I caught him cheating with 3 different women. Melissa's face went pale. 3 women? Oh, yes, dear. Travis is very talented at juggling multiple relationships. Aren't you, honey? Travis tried to laugh it off. Jane's still bitter about our divorce. You can't believe everything she says. Can I? Jane pulled out her phone. Because I have screenshots of text messages between you and Sarah Chen while we were married. Would you like me to read them out loud? That's enough, Travis said, grabbing Melissa's hand. We're leaving. Oh, don't go on my account, Jane called after them. I was just getting started with the stories. But Travis was already pulling Melissa toward the gate, his face red with embarrassment and anger. The party continued for another 2 hours, but the mood had shifted. People were asking questions about Travis, about Brooklyn, about what had really happened with our marriage. I answered honestly but diplomatically, painting myself as the wounded party without going into graphic detail. By the time everyone left, Travis's reputation in the neighborhood was thoroughly destroyed, and Melissa had learned exactly what kind of man she was dating. 3 days later, Jane called with an update. Melissa broke up with him, she reported gleefully. Apparently, she did some research online and found 2 other women willing to share their Travis stories. Good for her. And get this, Travis is moving out. The landlord got tired of all the drama and gave him 30 days' notice. Where's he going? Nobody knows and nobody cares. He's someone else's problem now. As for Brooklyn, she'd found a studio apartment across town and was working extra hours at the dental office to make ends meet. Dr. Patterson had decided not to fire her, but had made it clear that her job was contingent on maintaining a professional reputation. The divorce was finalized 6 weeks later. Brooklyn got half of our savings and her car. I got the house, my business, and my self-respect. Standing in my backyard that evening, looking at the fence where this whole mess had started, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months: peace. The grass wasn't greener on the other side after all. It was just different grass with different problems, different weeds, and different maintenance requirements. Brooklyn had learned that the hard way. Travis had learned it too, though he'd probably never admit it. And I'd learned that sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even. It's just letting people face the natural consequences of their choices. The neighborhood was quiet now. Travis's rental house was empty, with a for rent sign in the front yard. Brooklyn's friends had moved on to other gossip. Life was returning to normal, or at least to a new version of normal. I pulled out my phone and deleted Jane's number. Our partnership had served its purpose, but I didn't need that kind of connection anymore. I was ready to move forward, to build something new instead of tearing down something old. The grass in my backyard had never looked better.